Open a map of Sichuan and the Chengdu Plain and trace the Min River and its tributaries toward a low rise near Guanghan. There, the Sanxingdui discovery sits inside a landscape of levees, fields, and river terraces that once fed a Bronze Age city. Walk through the site museum and you meet faces first. Sanxingdui masks with wide ears, sharp noses, and eyes that push forward like tubes. They look unlike Central Plains ritual vessels, and that contrast is why Sanxingdui bronze masks explained has become a research agenda, not a slogan. The excavation strategy follows clean grids and climate-controlled shelters over the sacrificial pits to protect organics and delicate alloys. Sanxingdui excavation is about slow layers, ash, broken bronze, stacked ivory, and compacted soils that record a sequence of ritual acts. Archaeologists map every spit and 3D model each lift because surface texture, join lines, and residues are data, not decoration. Ancient Chinese archaeology at this site reads like a lab manual. Recover, stabilize, document, then interpret. The first constant across the pits is arrangement. Ivory tusks create pads and rails. Bronze heads and masks cluster where heat has reddened soil. Gold foil lies folded along edges and corners. That order supports the idea of sacrificial contexts rather than a random trash dump. Many objects show deliberate burning and breakage before burial, which fits a ritual decommissioning behavior seen in other Bronze Age artifacts. When a mask is found with gold foil that matches its contours, the simplest reading is a composite image used in performance or display, not a freestanding gold face. Inside some masks, the interiors show wear and mounting scars that argue for attachment to wooden forms or posts. Outside, the surfaces carry polishing lines that run with facial features, hinting at how the makers finished the final sheen. The most famous heads and masks share a grammar: strong brow ridge, deep cheek furrows, compressed mouth, and those protruding pupils that look engineered, not painted. Those eyes matter mechanically as well as symbolically because tubes can hold inlays or plugs and catch light from a distance. Sanxingdui masks were built big for visibility across courtyards, not only for close viewing in a chamber. Bronze technology at the site blends casting in sections with later joining and surface finishing. You can trace seams where separate parts met, and you can see small repair patches that were hammered and dressed in Chinese bronze artifacts. Here favor copper-tin lead alloys, tailored for fluid casts and stable large forms. Leaded bronze flows into thin features like ears and eyelids, with fewer cold shuts and smoother edges. On giant masks, the ears flare like sails. On some heads, ear spools read like fittings for ornaments or headdress ties. The faces are not isolated items. They sit beside altars, trees of bronze, standing figures, and complex fittings that turn a pit into a staged kit of ritual hardware. The bronze sacred tree is a systems object. Trunk, branches, birds, and a coiling creature at the base, all cast in segments that key together. Its segmented design shows planning in the mold room and strength in the joins, once the whole structure stands. Birds and floral elements act as mounts for thin castings, and their repeated motifs help balance weight around the vertical axis. The tall standing figure shows another thread in Sanxingdui culture: posture as authority, with hands posed to grip something now lost. Clothing edges and belt details are not generic. They show a local costume vocabulary, which matters for ancient China civilization when we map cultural zones. Sichuan archaeology at Sanxingdui also returns organics that rarely survive elsewhere. Ashy films on bronze and gold sometimes turned out to be silk residue, pushing textiles from ceremonial use into this ritual toolkit. Silk thread on sacred objects is not fashion. It is a binding, a wrap, or a veil that adds luster and meaning in motion. Ivory is not just an import index. Cut faces and tool striations record workshop, practice, and the order of cutting. Charred wood and lacquer traces cling to fittings and edges, reminding us that many displays were composite: bronze on wood, gold on bronze, and silk over both. When researchers speak of Sanxingdui culture mystery solved, or at least narrowed, this layered evidence is what they mean. The pits also inform the debate on Bronze Age China networks. Alloy recipes and lead signatures suggest metals from multiple sources and local casting, not only import of finished goods. Design, however, is regional. The tubais, open-work crowns, and altar forms hold together as a style that reads shu rather than shang, that split materials that travel. Style that clusters helps explain why Sanxingdui discovery changed the map of ancient Chinese archaeology. Look closely at how masks were made and you see practical constraints behind the drama. Protruding pupils require cores that do not float. Makers solve that with core supports and controlled pore temperatures. Large ears and thin rims need chill control. The solution is thicker feed zones and postcast thinning by abrasion. Edge-to-edge gold on bronze heads shows pressure forming rather than casting precious metal in one piece. Gold's malleability lets artisans hammer sheets to complex curves, then tack them by tabs or crimp at hidden seams. Where copper salts stained the reverse of a gold sheet, you get direct proof that the gold lived on bronze, not alone. Iconography raises the deepest questions because the faces look nothing like court bronzes from the Central Plains. Some readers connect the protruding eyes to local myths of rulers with unusual sight. Others see enhanced perception clairvoyance and clairaudience coded as anatomy to mark a being who sees and hears beyond the ordinary. Either way, the repeated features make the same claim. Authority is sensory reach plus ritual power. Embodied in metal, bronze trees and altars echo that logic by staging upward motion, perches for birds, and frame spaces for offerings. If you treat the whole pit as one device, the components assign roles. Heads look out, trees reach up, altars mediate, and silk binds. Sanxingdui bronze masks explained another way. They are faces of a system, not portraits of people. Archaeologists also track use life and end of life. Peck marks at edges, fresh-looking breaks, and heat reddening on clay suggest objects were killed before burial. This kind of ritual destruction is known across cultures and keeps sacred power from leaking into ordinary circulation. The caches, then, are not hoards to spend later. They are closures. For Sanxingdui discovery, that closure sealed a snapshot of practice at scale. When you study tool marks under raking light, the craft appears. Files cut across noses and long sweeps. Burnishers pull shine along cheek ridges. Punch dots define borders for eyebrows and crowns. Join lines are cleaned with scrapers that leave parallel spraying. Chased lines recenter symmetry where molds slipped. None of this is guesswork. It is visible on the metal and repeatable across multiple pieces. Bronze Age artifacts from the pits also preserve pigments in recesses and dark residues on lips and eyes. Where color survives, it turns sculpture into a stage prop tuned for contrast against silk and firelight. Scale matters in performance, so repeated motifs are large, legible, and rhythmically spaced. This is why giant masks and towering trees work. They hold attention across a crowd. The standing figure's hands imply a staff or a vessel that anchored identity, much like known ritual postures elsewhere. In Sanxingdui masks, ear spools and crown sockets imply detachable parts, making costumes modular and serviceable. That modularity links to logistics. Sections move from foundry to shrine and snap together on site. Repairs can swap parts without recasting a whole. It is engineering thinking inside ritual art. What do these finds reveal about ancient China civilization beyond style? They show regional centers with their own ritual economies, sharing metals and ideas along river corridors without copying central templates. They show workshops capable of planning big castings, using sectioned molds, and solving thermal problems with experience rather than equations. They show that Sanxingdui culture could orchestrate large public acts of offering that consumed ivory, silk, gold, and bronze in one controlled burn. They show that Chinese bronze artifacts are not only vessels with inscriptions, but also faces, trees, and stages that signal power in different ways. For Bronze Age China as a whole, Sanxingdui widens the baseline, proving that innovation did not flow from one capital out to passive provinces. Instead, multiple laboratories of belief and technique ran in parallel and traded where it made sense. For viewers today, the alien look is a mirror that reflects our limited expectations, not their intent. If you read the masks as optics, acoustics, and movement under ritual light, the design becomes reasonable and effective. If you read the pits as closures rather than treasure, the burning and breaking become legible, not destructive. If you read the alloys and residues, the site becomes a node in networks of metal, ivory, and silk, not an island. That is what Sanxingdui archaeological site discoveries really reveal about ancient China civilization. They reveal a Bronze Age city that engineered attention, choreographed offering, and archived its own shutdown with care. They reveal makers who managed scale, flow, and risk like seasoned technologists. They reveal a ritual language built from faces and trees instead of vessels and animals, but no less rigorous in rules. So when you hear Sanxingdui culture mystery solved, remember how the solving actually works. It works by counting seams and tusks, reading burn patterns, cross-checking alloys, and letting context lead meaning. It works by accepting that a bronze mask can be both an image and a mechanism for focus. It works by seeing that a sacred tree can be both cosmology and clever carpentry and metal. Sanxingdui is not a challenge to Chinese archaeological sites. It is a key that unlocks how diverse Bronze Age China always was. Use that key, and the masks stop being strange and start being specific. They become tools of vision in a system that needed people to look up, listen hard, and believe together. And that is what these bronze masks reveal about ancient China. Technology serving ritual, ritual shaping cities, and cities leaving evidence precise enough to test. Keep following the evidence, and more details will come into focus. As conservation finishes, residues are analyzed, and joins are mapped. The story is not finished, but the direction is clear. And the faces are already doing their job across 3 millennia, making us look closer.